Okay, let's continue. So we have introduced you the value proposition canvas, where you actually need to look at the customer pains and gains, and then what kind of jobs actually customers need to accomplish before buying it, while buying it, and after purchasing, what they actually need to do. And then according to that, you actually need to come up with gain creators, pain relievers, and the services that actually will make it easier, more convenient the customer job. So this is actually a fit between what customers want and what you offer. Because if you fail to have this fit, customers won't buy your product. Okay, so the next question is, where do we get this information? So there are two types of market research. The first one is called primary, and then the second one is called secondary. So primary is when you actually get the data from the source itself. So you ask the very customers, you ask the very end users, the consumers. Okay, so for that purpose, you can actually compile some questions and actually conduct the survey. We'll talk about that, and then you may actually hire some people, which we call focus group, which will interview different people and observation. Secondary method of research is called, well, desk research, where you actually try to find out some available information on the web, on some official databases and so on. Okay, so let's get an example. So I'm going to ask you to pause and read the text here, but okay, just read it, please. Now, so the question is, where these competitors come from? Are they local companies? Who are the competitors? How many different fizzy drinks are there in your country? So you want to start selling a new drink, and you want to know who your competitors are. And then the question is, where do you get this particular information? So when you do your business plan, okay, you actually will need some information about your competitors, and the question is, where do you get this information? So let's have a look at this one. Now, obviously, the easiest way is to look at some available data already before going and diving and digging the information, which is also needed. You first want to know, what is the primary information available? Do you have any information available? So you better look at the company's websites, obviously, official statistics. Sampling, observation is quite important one. So if we are talking about the drinks, the fizzy drinks in particular, then you better go to the supermarket or hypermarket, so a marketplace, and then actually see and watch and feel. So what are other drinks? What actually are sold? You can observe people buying the drink. How many drinks are they actually buying per hour, for example? Which drinks are more popular? So it's actually a primary source of collecting the data, isn't it? Yeah, well, obviously there are different ways of doing that as well, and you're going to have a field exercise on that. So you will have a chance to exercise that particular thing, sampling and observation. Now, collecting data from market research, designing a questionnaire. Let's take a look at the how do we conduct the survey? How do we actually create the questions that are relevant, and what actually are the criteria to compile and create a good questionnaire? So the first question is, you need to understand what exactly you're trying to figure out, what exactly you're trying to find out. You cannot ask everything from your poor customer in 100 questions, can you? Because customers are already reluctant to answer this kind of, they get already bored, they don't want to do that. So customer, they tend not to conduct the survey. Just imagine yourself, how many times have you actually taken the survey out of 10? So that's why you need to know what exactly you're trying to figure out. What do I need to ask? You need to segment. Who do you need to ask? You need to segment your customers. If you're trying to sell for example, for a certain group of customers, then obviously you better ask these type of customers. You can't ask teenagers if you're selling to adult people, for example, because this is not your customer segment, isn't it? How will I carry out my questionnaire? So there are different ways of doing that. Obviously, the Google Forms themselves, okay, and then the SurveyMonkey, and these kind of online platforms that enable you to conduct the surveys are handy. Okay, they're quick and for free almost, but people may not tend to take this service. So although it's easy, but it's easy to reject as well. Okay, so but there are other ways of taking questionnaires. Or maybe you've seen it in some markets or even in a street. Some people with some like blanks and some questions. They would literally come to you and ask you, "Hey, can I ask you a few questions?" And then he or she will write it down, or you will write it down. So interviewing is also a good one. Sampling. Now, what is sampling? Obviously, you can't. Well, you can, but it's going to be too expensive if you want to ask 100,000 people. Okay, 100,000 people. It's difficult to implement. So therefore, you may actually need doing sampling. What does it mean? Now, let's say that I want to get an information about gender distribution in NFIP. So let's say that there are 700 people here, well, 500 actually, and I want to know how many of these out of 500 people are female and how many of them are male. So the first option is you actually go and find out literally asking every single person, right? We're talking about primary research. The second one, you actually do sampling. So you actually take a sample of these 500, say 50 people, and assume that this is going to be representative. So asking 50 people is far more easier, isn't it? So you actually take a sample of these 500 people, let's say 50 people, and then actually try to work out how many of these out of 50 are females and how many of them are males. And it makes it much, much easier, okay? Although it may not be very accurate, however, it's very practicable. It's very handy, okay? Okay, now we advise you to have at least 30 in sampling, even better if it's going to be 50, but at least 30, not less than 30, because if you're trying to figure out something out of 500, then obviously 5 or 10 is not representative at all. Okay, now do not ask too many questions. Keep the questions and answer choices as well short and clear. A customer or a respondent should not think about your question too hard, okay? He or she will not just answer the question because it just takes a lot of mental energy. So keep it very simple. Go to the question, go to the point, and do not ask too many questions. Keep the number of open-ended questions minimal. Now, there are obvious advantages of having open-ended questions because people can actually give variety of answers, and you may actually have more accurate data on that. However, if you keep asking open-ended questions a lot of times, then people again will not respond to that one. So keep it minimal. Think about the order of questions to ask. Obviously, it needs to be logical. It needs to be well, there needs to be a follow-up of questions. Okay. Well, okay. Now, sometimes the answer would also do the work. So this is a very classic example. You just say strongly agree, disagree, and so on. But you may actually also want to put the answers as choices. So the most anticipated answers from your customers, you can actually use them as options, A, B, C, D, so that customers don't say just yes or no, or agree or disagree, but literally choose the very answer that you are proposing. So it actually makes the lives of your customers easier. Okay. Now, once you've collected the data, You have it. You have to interpret the data, isn't it? You have to make it very carefully. Now I'm gonna give you some exercises on data interpretation. Okay, so let's say that there is a company, hypothetical company called Kazakh Milk and Co. So and it actually works in 3 countries: Italy, Sweden, and Spain. And this is a percentage distribution of their sales, revenue sales, in these 3 countries. And within the country, there are different distribution channels. So the company is actually selling their products, the milk, for example, via supermarkets, hypermarkets, traditional, and some other means of sale. So the distribution is given here. So we can say that for Italy, for example, the supermarkets sales, they correspond to 40%. So if, say, company is selling for 1 million tenge per month, then obviously 400,000 tenge in Italy would be due to supermarkets, for example, and so on. Okay. Now, the first question is the revenue from supermarkets is largest in Sweden? So for example, in supermarkets, right? So it kind of seems like the largest because it's 70%. So you want to answer it yes, but no rush, because we don't know how big the Sweden's market is. Look, this is just the percentage. It's not an absolute value. We don't know how much Sweden is selling. Maybe Sweden is selling only 50,000 tenge per day. We don't know that. 50,000 euros per day. But Italy, even though it's only 40%, but Italy is much bigger, and therefore it's going to sell more. So not necessarily in this case, unless the market of size of Sweden is really the largest. Okay, now let's say that the absolute values, the revenues are also given. Okay, here it is. And Sweden is not the largest. So the answer for the previous question may not be yes. Okay, we have to calculate that. So so if we try to figure out the largest income coming from specifically supermarkets in which country, then we need to calculate that. Now, we know that supermarkets is the dark blue. So in Italy it's 40%, Sweden 70%, Spain 40%. We also given the revenue. So we need to calculate from supermarkets how much money is actually coming to the Kazakh Milk and Co. And then you just calculate it, and we can see that actually Spain is generating the largest revenue from sales of products from supermarkets, okay, as a distribution channel. Okay, good. So guys, you need to be careful with collecting the data, making sure that your question is not ambiguous, making sure that the gathered data is actually interpreted correctly. Okay, so apart from our main textbook, I would suggest another Osterwalder and Pigner book called Business Model Generation, where the value proposition canvas is also explained. And there is a YouTube video also available. Please follow the link and watch the video about the business model canvas. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you.